I'd like to call this meeting to order, but before I ask everyone to rise for a moment of silence, I would like to acknowledge Merv James Villemaire. On December 6th, Merv passed away 2 weeks shy of his 92nd birthday. And for many councillors around this horseshoe, Merv served as a mentor, a colleague, and a constituent. Merv was very free with advice and opinions, whether you solicited them or not. His life spanned many years and many miles, from the gold mines in Northern Ontario to practicing law locally for 62 years. In 1966, Merv became a Queen's Counsel, and in 2004 became a life member of the Law Society of Upper Canada. Merv was a dedicated family man, and we send our sincere condolences to his wife, Claudette, and family. Merv served on Kitchener City Council and Regional Council. He also was a member of various hospital boards and university boards and gave generously of his time to charitable causes. So I would ask everyone to rise, and we'll have a moment of silence in memory of Merv Villemaire. Please be seated. Thank you. For those viewing, I'm not Sean Strickland. I would ask if there's any declarations of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Councillor Rentz, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? No, okay. Moving on, we have a presentation, and I believe Michelle Sergi is going to speak to this. And this is about our Waterloo Regional Brownfields Financial Incentive Award program. Welcome, Michelle.
Chair Redmond, Council. Recently, the Region of Waterloo Brownfield Financial Incentive Program won a 2019 Brownie Award from the Canadian Brownfield Network in the category of Legislation, Policy, and Program Initiatives. I have here with me today Amanda Cutler, our Manager of Planning, and Peter Ellis, a Principal Planner, who is an expert on all things brownfields and the implementation of the program, here to help me present the award to you. So for over 10 years, the region's Brownfield Incentive Program, what I affectionately refer to as the BFIP program, in partnership with the area municipalities, has helped to break down barriers of brownfield redevelopment by helping to reduce the level of risk and uncertainty with respect to redeveloping brownfields and contaminated sites. We have a demonstrated history of success, approving more than $50 million in regional funds towards brownfield remediation, for a total of 24 sites and almost 80 hectares of land. Over $1.1 billion in increased assessed value is predicted. It spanned a variety of projects from residential to mixed use to industrial, and the program really embodies the spirit of innovation and collaboration. The region's program has been used as a model for other programs across Ontario, as well as assisted in the development of resources nationally. With speaking specifically to collaboration in the nature of the program, it applies both internally and externally. Internally, implementation requires multi-departmental approaches, including staff from finance, legal, facilities, source water protection, and planning. Externally, area municipal partners. Our tax increment grant component of the program can only be administered through the community improvement programs of our area municipalities. We certainly share this award with our area municipal partners, and with that, I would like to welcome Chair Redmond and Councillor Galloway down to accept the award.
Thank you so much.
Michelle, get in there. I'm going to take pictures.
I'm going to have so much fun with this, the Brownie Award.
Canadian Brownfield Network.
Network. For those of you on social media who are watching, you just have to watch Sue Foxton's social media. She wants to put this out, hashtag Brownie Award. I'm going to revisit, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest under the Conflict of Interest Act? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I completely forgot about it. I just kind of received the minutes for all that. But I do have a conflict on the Municipal Conflict Interest Act, pecuniary interest, and I'm not sure which the item is, and maybe the clerk can help me out. I think it was 5.2 on the agenda, as I'm a property manager for that property.
Yes, I believe it's on page 27, so thank you. That's duly noted.
Thank you.
You just thought I was giving you a hard time, didn't you?
Well, I was calling him the word Villemaire.
Thank you. We're going to move on to delegations at this point in time. We have a few registered. The first is on item 3 on the Administration and Finance Committee summary, multi-residential tax ratio. And the first delegation is John MacDonald. Welcome, John. You have 5 minutes. And we won't start counting till you start talking. How's that?
Oh, goodness me. Thank you, Chair Redmond, members of council, and my sincere apologies for not being able to make the committee meeting. My reward for that is to do a 10-minute presentation in 5 minutes. So I apologize again for the potential briskness of some of this. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening regarding the inequities of the property tax class ratio for tenants in older multi-residential properties. I would ask that council return it to staff for further study. I would certainly ask that you not adopt its recommendation of no action on the issue of the inequity of the tax class for older apartment buildings. This segment of the housing market caters to many members of our community squeezed by the affordability crisis, and addressing the tax class issue directly affects the affordability question greatly. My interest is in genuinely seeking to remedy an inequity in which we are all involved. The report before you sets out its reasons for recommending no action. I would like to review them and offer further input if I may. There are aspects that I would like to offer, but given the time I may not be able to, but I'm glad to entertain questions. First, the different assessment methodologies and the compensating by raising taxes argument. I quote from the report: "The assessment value and the tax ratios cannot be looked at independently of one another. I agree where they are each examined comprehensively and disagree where they are looked at selectively. The two items have very different and significant problems and reside in different jurisdictions. It is not the region's job to fix the impact system or matters under more senior level jurisdiction. We can all agree that the assessment system is flawed in myriad ways, but this is no reason to zero in on just one of the many inequities in the assessment system to perpetuate the tax class inequity. I believe the report selects items in a system beyond your control to justify the inequity that is in your control. The report wishes to argue on this basis. To do so, it should take a long and hard look at other aspects of the impact system, and I don't believe the report does that. It would generate a whole host of issues. Staff's opinion is that multi-residential tax is assessed using the income approach and the sixplex with the comparative sales method. That is correct. We need to understand, however, that as an income-producing property, the sixplex is also already valued by the marketplace using the income system, and then MPAC simply comes along and garners the results with their methodology. That said, if we would wish to accept the logic of the report, we might equally ask why a property owner in downtown of Kitchener with extensive frontage directly onto your ION LRT tracks at Charles Street West has an assessed value for its three-acre property of $1.3 million as per 2018, when land of its location is selling for approximately $3 to $5 million an acre. So thus a $10 to $16 million property is paying taxes on 1/10 of its value. We understand that the impact system generates inequities in the tax burden for both businesses and residents and tenants all over the place, and that the system is a poor and regressive way to raise badly needed municipal funds. This should not affect one particular group in their search for affordable accommodation as a basic necessity of life in our community. Second, the shift of the tax burden to others. I simply do not understand the argument that says effectively that correcting this inequity for a vulnerable few to the tune of 50% of their taxes, more or less, should not be undertaken so as to avoid a small increase to the many that have for years and years benefited from the inequity. This is an argument for inaction on many fronts and a mistreatment of the few to the benefit of the many. It cannot go unchallenged. The recent municipal election showed how deeply all members of our community and candidates for councils and public office at all municipal levels are concerned by the affordability issue. I believe we underestimate our community's capacity for fairness when we argue that unfairness should remain precisely because it exists, and further that it should be applied to those least likely to be able to afford the inequity as they struggle to perhaps pay more than 30% of their household income in rent and accommodation costs. Third, the boogeyman that horrible landlords will not pass the decrease to their tenants. The report rightly states that a decrease of more than 2.49% must be passed on to tenants by legislation. It makes little effort, however, to identify what those rent savings might be. With the judicious use of the anchoring effect to which we are all vulnerable, it leaves you with the impression that what we're talking about here might be more or less a 2.5% decrease in taxes associated with that set of tenants. In another context, the burden, on the other hand, of a 3% increase is seen as an effect on the average homeowner that is horrific. The report should, in fairness, provide decision makers with the effect in dollars on the average rental taxpayer. It provides the $66 for the average homeowner. I would ask you then to consider that this real person is potentially paying beyond 30% of their income in rent. I suggest it's nothing like 2.49%, but larger by many times in terms of the effect you would have on housing affordability. By way of example, if even just 15% of rent goes to tax and a person unfortunately living in an older MT building is paying rent of $1,000 a month, that's $150 a month for tax. A savings from an equitable distribution of tax class, together with all other housing providers and provisions on the basis of assessed value, would produce an annual savings of almost $900 a year. $100 per year isn't much, potentially, to the average homeowner of Ontario, with an average household income of over $100,000, as StatsCan sets out in 2016. That income is vastly different from the income of the tenant affected by this inequity, and comparisons should not be made between the two. If properly reported to the average homeowner, I do suggest that that homeowner, if possessing any sense of perspective, would at least be as appalled as we are and as we should be regarding this situation. There are other aspects of the report that I could speak to. One of them being, of course, that landlords pay taxes and tenants do not, and that we're talking about a business here. The reality is that it is after-tax dollars that pay these taxes, the after-tax dollars of the tenants. The reality is that the landlords get the money from the tenants. That's where they have to get that money. And the reality is that many others in our community who own sixplexes, who've bought condos and rent them out, who rent in their basements, are all business people, and they're all in the housing market. I believe we should treat the housing market equitably and the same. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Mr. MacDonald. I don't see any questions, so thank you very much.
Cheers.
Our next delegation on this same issue is Andrew Macallum, President, Waterloo Regional Apartment Management Association. Welcome, Andrew. You two have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. Council, thank you so much. My name is Andrew Macallum, President of the Waterloo Regional Apartment Management Association. RAMA, or I should say WRAMA, pronounced RAMA, is a not-for-profit association led by a board of directors who volunteer their time working to actively and positively develop and sustain the integrity of its members' business, the provision of private residential rental accommodation. Chair Redmond, to your question to an earlier speaker tonight about where is the private voice in affordable housing, I ask that you consider RAMA to be that credible voice. Since 1989, formalizing a group that has been around for years prior. RAMA is grateful to have been included as a voice with the Region of Waterloo Administration and Finance Committee and its multi-residential property tax review during spring of 2019. RAMA is disappointed with the report recommendation that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo take no action with respect to the request from the Waterloo Regional Apartment Management Association to reduce the multi-residential tax ratio from 1.95 to 1.0 as set out in the report dated December 3rd, 2019. With a detailed explanation from staff that supports maintaining a tax ratio nearly double that of its residential properties and new multi-residential properties built after April 11, 2001, it is prudent to consider the impact of the decision of this report. The report leaves the reader with several impressions, respectfully. It is far more palatable to maintain the status quo rather than reduce the ratio from 1.95 to 1.0. There is no confidence in local rental housing providers to pass on any non-legislated reduction in tax savings to tenants. The desire for new purpose-built rental stock in the region is far greater than multi-residential buildings built prior to April 11, 2001. And despite providing 3 options for multi-residential tax ratios found on pages 8 to 12 in the report, staff has recommended taking no action on any of them. In early 2019, RAMA was fortunate to have been included in a consultation session initiated by the Ministry of Social Affairs and Housing. It was one of several sessions that helped inform Ontario's Housing Supply Action Plan, Bill 108 More Homes, More Choice Act. It was a fascinating experience being included in a dialogue with different housing developers from around the province. Including different people with different backgrounds and experiences, helped paint a picture of opportunities and challenges for housing development throughout Ontario. With the region of Waterloo continuing to be among the most desirable places to live, raise a family, and do business, the pressures to provide housing continue to rise, as was mentioned several times by many delegations even tonight. When it comes to rental housing provision, RAMA supports the region of Waterloo in taking a page from the Ministry of Social Affairs and Housing's playbook to engage in consultation. With hope, a central regional body would consider the impact that federal, provincial, regional, and city legislation have on rental housing. The multi-residential property tax ratio is but one of a number of missed opportunities local councils have had on making the region of Waterloo a leader in Canada in its efforts to address housing issues, and more specifically, rental housing provision. RAMA is a leader and credible voice in rental housing provision and is very willing to work with and support the region of Waterloo in addressing rental housing issues. The association continues to request that the property tax ratio detailed in the aforementioned report be reduced from 1.95 to 1.0 in an effort to address the larger housing issues confronting the region of Waterloo and citizens who live here. And on a side note, I came to this meeting after having been part of a panel at the, what was it called? The, gee whiz, the name's escaping me. Alliance, another word for alliance, of Muslim Women of Waterloo Region.
Coalition.
Thank you. And now for charades. There was a question from a member of the audience. What can we do as a community to help address some of the affordability issues that we have with rental housing? And I said very plainly that the different levels of government over years in efforts to help citizens have come across with legislation and regulations that we're finding now are causing a real choking effect on prices of new homes, of renting space, and the overall impact on the housing market in Waterloo Region. I would ask Council to consider that, and RAMA being a credible voice to listen to and include. On behalf of the Waterloo Regional Apartment Management Association, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Macallum. You are right on time, and I see no questions, so thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we do have 2 other delegations, but I'm going to ask if this pertains to item 3 in the Finance and Admin report. I'm wondering if, Councillor Strickland, if you want to bring that forward and we can deal with it now.
Yes, Madam Chair, it's on page 24 of our council agenda. So the recommendation from committee, item 3, is that we take no action with respect from the request in writing that we received in NF and that we heard again this evening. So I move that.
You moving it? Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Foxton. I see no discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Oops. Back to our delegations now, and I have, is it Yiren Wang to speak about GRT 903 Flex? Yes. Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, good evening, council members and staff. This is my first ever presentation at this delegation, so I thank everybody who invited me. Early this evening, we heard from a number of members of our community who have expressed interest in, thank you, who have expressed their reliance on the GRT system as of late, and from various parts of the community. And I am one of those people, and So today I'm here to speak to you about the GRT 903 Flex. So this is the map that was one of the most recent ones that we had from this service. And when the service was introduced in November of last year, my family, which is my wife and myself, were very pleased because this would allow us to commute more easily to various parts of the KW community. So we live approximately 7 minutes from the nearest bus stop and 10 minutes from the second nearest bus stop. And so the 903 Flex has allowed us to travel much more efficiently within the region. I actually took some time to highlight, you can't really see it very well, but in orange, a line delimiting where it would take more than 5 minutes for people to walk to the nearest bus stop. And I also highlighted in orange the virtual stops that are within that 5+ minute range. So I concur with all the recommendations of the previous people who have spoken here tonight. And I just wanted to highlight one thing. So within the past year, there have been 3 grocery stores. Oh, actually, so this is the region where we live in, which is right on the edge of that, one of those areas. I wanted to highlight 3 routes to nearby grocery stores that myself and my wife take for grocery shopping. The green line is Sobeys. The orange line is to Zehrs, and the purple line is to TNT, which is the nearest Asian grocery store. And so using the GRT 903 Flex, we have saved $7 per trip to Sobeys, $12 per trip to Zehrs, and $14 per trip to TNT, which consisted of, in the past year, in the past month, actually, one of the months I was counting, from September 15th to October 15th of this year, we saved $79 in a month, which equals to about $900 of savings per year. I recommend for future budgets that the Waterloo region look into ride-sharing services such as this one, which I understand that the ridership has fallen below the projected count, but I do strongly recommend that the region consider the needs of individuals and families such as myself and my wife who live car-free. So that's my presentation for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an interesting focus on your presentation. It's a bit different than other presentations. I see no questions, so thank you very much for taking the time and sitting through all the other delegations. The next delegation registered is Noelle Fletcher, President, CUPE 1883, regarding the 2019 Service Review Draft Report. Welcome, Noelle.
Thank you. So I thought I had 10 minutes, so I'm going to speak fast.
It's okay, I can't figure out how to start the clock, so you start and I'll figure it out.
Perfect. I'm here speaking tonight as the president of CUPE Local 1883, representing 846 inside workers of the region of Waterloo. I would like to share my concerns about why the core service review recently undertaken in the region of Waterloo is not in our community's best interest. The reality is that municipal services in Ontario, including in our community have been cut to the bone over the last 20 years. Our services are already delivered efficiently and in fact are stretched to the limit. There's nothing left to cut. The Conservative government is encouraging local governments to outsource responsibility for examining the services they provide, yet core service reviews in other Ontario communities and across Canada have a common pattern. These reviews lack genuine public consultation and don't consider the public's vision for their communities. Instead, consultations arrive with predetermined outcomes. Reviews tend to make recommendations in 3 areas: cut, eliminate, or privatize services, increase user fees, or sell community assets for a one-time cash infusion. Unfortunately, the KPMG service report confirms this trend. Through the review, there are numerous opportunities that have been identified as prospects to reduce costs that Regional Council will review. These recommendations will likely result in budget cuts that could affect service delivery to the community for programs they've come to rely and depend on, as well as impact on jobs that my members and your taxpayers hold. Many of the opportunities identified are those that support our most vulnerable citizens. Opportunity number 3, which speaks to a possible savings of $1.8 million by reducing or eliminating the region's contribution to discretionary benefits for those on Ontario Works and on the Ontario Disability Support Program. These community members that access discretionary benefits receive items such as mobility aids, eviction prevention, food hampers, and emergency dental care. If Council supports eliminating discretionary benefits, they are leaving the most vulnerable citizens with no other resource to turn to for these fundamental items. Opportunity number 5 calls for review of the need and number of directly operated regional childcare centres. Parents value the 5 regional centres and value the care provided by staff. We are all aware of the lack of childcare spaces throughout the region of Waterloo. If you move forward with this proposal, there would be hundreds of local families without childcare spaces, forcing families to make hard choices regarding employment, housing, and more. Research has shown that public childcare is often the highest quality care provided, and I believe our childcare centres provide exemplary service. Opportunity number 6 speaks to the need for a review of community development services and housing. Though this is a discretionary service, I see this as a community development opportunity to build stronger, diverse communities, again ensuring the most vulnerable receive necessary information, including referrals to support services and eviction prevention. Opportunity number 11 also brings housing into the spotlight, referencing a significant budget and staffing complement associated with housing and homelessness. The report suggests that automation may have a reduction in costs. We have seen how well that has worked in Ontario Works. Often the individuals and families that are in crisis and require human interaction to ensure the application is done correctly to avoid unnecessary delays. This also provides an opportunity to ensure people are aware of all services that they can be accessing. Housing affordability and availability in Waterloo Region need to be addressed with more funding, not cuts. Museum services are identified in opportunity number 7 with over 51 full-time equivalent staff, many of which are 1883 members. The KPMG report identifies that the region's expenditures on museum services are higher than its comparators. In the comparative survey, the average number of museum memberships is fewer than 200. The region of Waterloo has over 700 members, more than 3 times the average membership. In 2018, more than 100,000 people attended museum service locations. The region of Waterloo museums are essential to understanding our place in the world, past, present, and future, cultivates feelings of pride, and fosters a sense of community identity. CUPE Local 1883 members also support public transit mobility plus operations. They are responsible for the safe, customer-focused, and reliable delivery of specialized transit services to transport people with impaired mobility. Users can access this service for a variety of reasons, from grocery shopping and personal appointments to attending life-saving medical appointments like dialysis treatment. It's crucial that this accessible door-to-door service be left in our community. KPMG is a member of the Canadian Council of Public-Private Partnerships. A clear note, they support the privatization of services. With the increasing costs we are all burdened with, cost of living, fuel, taxes, etc., citizens of the region of Waterloo cannot be saddled with additional expenses of privatized services. Privatization also leads to marginalized members of our community not having access to services at all. It is extremely hard to believe that a large consulting firm can provide municipalities with advice that is neutral and objective, and that takes into account the best interests of the workers and the community. While I recognize I did not delve into the details of each of the 19 opportunities, but rather touched on the ones that have a significant impact on the community and our members, most of the opportunities, if not all, if taken further and services are eliminated, would be detrimental to the greater community and to those workers who are proud to deliver regional services. Choosing to change, reduce, eliminate how the region delivers services would be detrimental and damaging to the residents. Residents were not given fruitful opportunities to have meaningful conversations and provide feedback in a way that can be taken forward with the tight timelines imposed by the Regional Council. Furthermore, the voices of workers, who are key to identifying ways to improve and strengthen service delivery, are not central to the process either. This sidelined the voices of those who know the services best, those who use them, and those who provide them. On behalf of CUPE 1883, I'm asking for council support in protecting and enhancing the services that keep our community strong, that keep our workers engaged and proud to provide the services they do. So, communities, not cuts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noelle. I don't have any questions for you at this late date, but just to suffice to say, KPMG did what we asked them to do, and it's the beginning of the conversation, not the end, but thank you for your thoughtful comments.
Okay, thanks.
That's the end of our delegations. Next, I have minutes of previous meetings. This is closed council of November 13th, open council. Budget November 26th, budget public input, community services, a closed committee December the 3rd, finance and administration December 3rd, planning and works December 3rd, and library December 3rd. Moved by Councillor Jaworski. I just want people watching to know that we're passing all this. Seconder, Councillor Nowak. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Communications, you should have all received them electronically. Any questions about the communications? I would entertain a motion to go into a committee of the whole to consider reports. Moved by Councillor Lorentz, seconded by Councillor Kiefer. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Reports, the first is a financial report. Okay. All right. You're not showing up, Councillor. Okay. Yes, you are. So, Councillor Harris, did you want to
Just a quick comment on
move?
item number D. Are we on all those, the procurement side?
Well, we are, but Councillor Galloway moved them. I didn't get a seconder yet, but yes.
Yeah, I'll second those.
Okay.
But I have a quick comment.
And now you'd like to comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to make a comment on item number D. I noticed that there was, the Regional Police Headquarters is doing a front lobby renovation, and it was fantastic to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bidders. I don't know what affiliation they have, but it's good to see 8. That's it.
It's to enhance security. Okay. Any further comments? All those in favor? That is unanimous. We're to committee reports. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I move the Council approve the 3 recommendations from the Community Services Committee, the Region's Implementation Plan with regards to the Housing Services Act amendments, the communications with the province and CMHC with regards to the community housing building condition audits and reserve fund studies, and the Region's communications with the Provincial Ministry of Health with regards to the Ontario Seniors Dental Care Program. I also have somewhere, my colleague didn't move it. I also have a recommendation from closed council, today's closed council, that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo approve a tentative memorandum of settlement with the Ontario Nurses Association, ONA, on behalf of nurses employed at Sunnyside Home for the 2-year period of April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2020.
That's great. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? All those in favor? Councillor Clark, the clerk is asking me, did you move closed community services as well from the previous week? 23A.
Yes,
Yes, okay.
I move that.
Thank you.
That thing on page 28.
Councillor Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the two remaining recommendations from A&F on page 24. The first one being with respect to borrowing for 2020 capital expenditures, and also the second one with respect to communicating with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and support a proposed cancellation of deferred development charge payments. And we also have another request to the Minister to delete the remaining deferred development charge payments under Section 26.1 of the Development Charges Act. I'd also like to move a couple of recommendations from Budget Committee today dealing with water and wastewater user rates, one for the region, one for the wholesale rates, water and wastewater respectively. I so move, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Jowett. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Galloway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the 10 recommendations from the regular Planning and Works Committee and then add 5 more from closed session. The first of those is a settlement with the Marsden Center for a piece of property on Weaver Street related to a road project. The second is a settlement with Amico Infrastructures related to a road project, Fountain Street, King Street, Shaunt's Hill in Cambridge. The third is to confirm the appeal filed by our Planning, Development, and Legislative Services on behalf of the region relative to the Committee of Adjustment matter in the City of Kitchener. The fourth is appointments to the Ecological and Environmental Advisory Committee, and the fifth is our appointments to the Active Transportation Advisory Committee.
Oh, thank you. I'm just going to confer with Councillor Rentz. You had a conflict on number 8, so I'm wondering if we could take that one separately, Councillor Galloway?
I think it was item 7.
Sure.
Item 7.
So everything but number 8 on page 27 is moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Reconvene.
Seven was a conflict.
Oh, 7, sorry.
Item 5.2.
It's a much longer clause. All those in favor excluding number 7? That is carried. Councillor Galloway, would you like to move number 7?
Move number 7.
Seconded by Councillor Jowett. All in favor? That is carried. Councillor Strickland?
Madam Chair, there was one other recommendation from Budget today that never made it onto a sheet tonight with respect to moving the River Road project back into our capital budget. So we should adopt that tonight, I would suggest.
I'll second that.
I'm wondering if you can take it as direction to staff and it will come back. Mr. Dyer, do you want to speak to it?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think with respect to that particular recommendation, we'll bake that into the recommendations that will come forward for final budget approval on January 22nd.
Okay, is that acceptable, Councillor Strickland?
I'm not quite sure because we've approved it already. So that doesn't mean that we need to approve it again.
Through Madam Chair, I would say that it amends the capital program, and it'll be the amended capital program that will bring back for approval. I think in the past, any changes, any resolutions that have been passed by Budget Committee over the course of the budget review all came back for final approval on the 22nd.
Yeah, you're right. That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so we've underscored it and will be baked into the...
Yeah, so we'll bring it back to Budget Day. Okay. Yeah, right, you're right, thanks.
So, Councillor Armstrong, would you like to talk about libraries?
I move the recommendation coming from the Library Committee.
Seconded by Councillor Foxton. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. So Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Murray, do you have any report tonight? I say financial, CAO.
I got a promotion.
Chief Administrative Officer Murray, do you have a report?
Yeah, so shockingly, I do. So it's been a really long day, so I'll try to be brief. And I just wanted to share publicly some news that I shared earlier with Council in caucus. So after 27 years with the region and more than 15 years as CAO, I've decided that it's time for me to retire from the region in the spring of 2020. So there'll be lots of time for more reflection by me and maybe others over the next few months. But I wanted to say what an absolute privilege, excuse me, it's been to be part of this organization for the last 27 years, and especially to have served as your CAO for the last 15 years. It's been an honor to work with such an incredible team of people during my entire career here at the region. We have a wonderful leadership team. I'm really happy that they're all here tonight to share this. We've got an amazingly talented group of staff, and I think a tremendously dedicated and community-minded group of councillors. So I have been immensely proud of the work that we've done together and the positive impact that we've made on our community. And we heard a lot about that already tonight, the positive impact that this organization makes on so many aspects of this community. You all as a group, staff and councillors, you represent the very best of public service. And together, we have built one of the finest communities in Canada. I've told Chair Redmond that I want to ensure the smoothest possible transition to a new CAO. I'm hoping that can happen sometime in May of 2020, and I'll do whatever I can to assist Council with that. So I certainly have mixed feelings about this announcement today. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. I'm looking forward to the next phases of my life, but I know that I'll miss each and every one of you, and I'll miss this entire organization as I move on in my journey. So thank you so much for everything.
I'm going to take slight privilege as the chair and very briefly say that we're going to work you really hard until May. And also to say that you're choosing to leave at the pinnacle of a very long and distinguished career. In 15 years as CAO, you've brought outstanding leadership. You've invested in the community and our partners. You've been supportive of those partners and fostered excellence and empowering our staff. So thank you very much, and we will continue to do good things for the region of Waterloo and our citizens. So he doesn't report very often, but boy, when he does, you gotta listen.
Maybe one more. Might be one more.
One more, okay. Other matters under the Committee of the Whole, there is a recommendation. Upsize Cambridge sanitary sewer for the East Side lands. There's a recommendation moved by Councillor Sean, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? That is carried. A motion for the Committee of the Whole to rise in Council to resume, moved by Councillor Strickland, seconded by Councillor Nowak. All those in favor? That is carried. A motion to adopt proceedings of the Committee of the Whole, moved by Councillor Kiefer, seconded by Councillor Erb. All those in favor? That is carried. Any motions? Notices of motion? Any unfinished business? Other business? A motion to enact the bylaws first, second, and third readings, moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Foxton. All those in favor? A motion to adjourn. Councillor Armstrong. Thank you, one and all.